Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining me and my very special guest. He has a multifaceted career. He's an illustrious career that spans Broadway, television, film, and music. His latest projects that he can be seen in include the hit Netflix series Hollywood, for which he also served as executive producer, and also the new hilarious Quibi series called Royalties, where he serves as executive producer and songwriter. Please say hello to my friend, Darren Criss.
Hello, Richie. Good morning.
Oh my! And it is morning for you, isn't it?
It is morning. Yes, I've been not getting up much earlier than 10 a.m. I must admit, in these quarantine times. But I got up early for you. It's okay. So I'm here.
Well, I thank you for this, because when we announced that you were going to be here at Broadway World, the fans were going crazy. Everyone from all around the world have set their clocks to get up to look at our interview today.
So well, then I can't complain. I'm sure people are waking up much earlier than me then.
Totally. So first of all, where are you and how are you?
I'm well. I mean, I'm in Los Angeles, but you were mentioning before this interview started, you're in New York. I was in New York. I don't post a lot of stuff on social media, so I don't let people keep track of where I am. But I've been traveling quite a bit. My wife and I were pretty darn sick towards the beginning of things. It was actually, what's nuts is I was so sick right before the quarantine happened that I would probably completely inappropriately joke that, oh, I have the coronavirus. This is before it was really where it was. Like, the idea was so absurd that I would have it. And I think I absolutely did. I can't say that. I'm sure there's medical professionals that's like, you didn't get tested, you don't know that. I had all the symptoms, as did my wife. And we were fine. We're not as high risk as a lot of other people. I think a lot of young people were fine. So we had it we're pretty sure we did. And so we very quickly thereafter tested positive for the antibodies, which is a very divisive thing. I'm very careful with my words because a lot of people feel very on the fence about it. However, for us, knowing that we were really sick and knowing that regardless if you could get it again in a year or so, I know we're not going to get it in the next month or two, much less give it to people. So we took it as an opportunity to go visit family and friends that that couldn't travel. So I've been in and out of New York, actually, and I was just in the Midwest as well, seeing family who have been shut in, and I think we're really thrilled to have Uncle Darren and Auntie Mia come by.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I think when we get through all this and we're through the other end of it, I think human contact is going to be so important, of just that one-on-one and just living in the moment with people. I mean, it's all Zoom now. It's all we've ever done. I mean, it's a whole new now. And I think, right? Don't you think when things open again?
I was joking. I'm stealing this from somebody else, but the quarantine. I feel like so many things have happened. I mean, that's a whole Pandora's box we have to open up. But I feel like, even just at home, we've all gone in phases of you started off maybe doing this thing and now you're kind of in this mode. What I'm gonna say is that June rolled around and I felt like there was June gloom. Like, people were just over it. We started with a lot of family Zooms and a lot of game nights on Zoom, at least in my household. And now it's like, I don't really want to. This is different. This is an interview. I'm happy to talk to you. But as far as these weekly Zooms with your friends, I kind of petered off on those. But if you're still doing that, good for you. But it's just funny that there's already been waves of things just at home. But yes, you're right. I think people will inevitably be thrilled to get back together again. I mean, you and I are in the business of being together with people. My wife and I, our bar in Los Angeles is not just a bar. It's a place where you come and sing along and be with strangers. So, that deprivation is certainly a bummer, obviously for our livelihood, but also just for our emotional well-being. You're right. I think when things are over, it's going to be like, that famous photo at the end of World War II with the sailor, making out with that girl. Hopefully it was somebody he knew. But there's that definite feeling of I like being around people, always have, and I think there's many people who maybe don't, that we would probably also feel the same way, that it is sort of a necessary part of our existence on this planet. So I'm just agreeing with you in long form.
Yeah. Well, we just finished our 100 days of quarantine. I mean, can you fathom that? We were talking about this just the other day. They're like, we did 100 days. I'm like, 100 days. Wow. Yeah, exactly. That. Snap. Because
wow.
Broadway shut down and the New York Theater shut down on March 12th. I think I had seen
Right.
you like just a week before
Yeah.
at open rehearsal for American Buffalo, one of my all-time favorite plays. I mean, you were in rehearsal with Lawrence Fishburne, Sam Rockwell, with director Neil Pepe. I mean, what was March 12th? What was that day like for you, and how did you find out?
Well, what's crazy is, and this is not to freak you out, but that was around the time that I was sort of feeling really sick. There was at one point they were like telling me to stay home or to go to the doctor. I didn't really know what it was. So what scares me when I tell people that is that I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. Like, I gave it to you. But we just didn't know. We didn't have the information at the time. So it didn't even register to me. So, yeah, the idea of it closing was I mean, now it's the new normal. We're so used to it, but at the time it was a shock. It was a real bummer. And we all also thought, oh, well, this will be over in just a couple months, certainly not 100 days that go by like that. Yeah, I remember thinking, honestly, I texted all my friends who were on Broadway and I said, let's all get wrecked. Where are we going? What are we going to do tonight? You now have the day off tomorrow. Let's go get weird. But I called a lot of my friends that were just opening shows. I had a lot of really good friends in company, and my buddy Dan was just about to open the Pillowman. Not the Pillowman, Hangman, another Martin McDonagh play.
Sure.
And I was just gutted as the news went out. The shows that I was really, 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 really looking forward to seeing, that I had tickets to their previews, and I consciously didn't see them because I was like, no, I'll wait till they open. I'll give them a chance to work out the kinks, So it was a shock for sure, and I can't believe it's been that long since then already. I went back to Los Angeles within a week of that shutdown. I came back here, and I'll say this, and I said this towards the beginning of the quarantine, and again, I'm sensitive to people who are the essential workers, people on the front lines, people with little ones at home, especially parents. My big shout out to parents and teachers who have been working triple overtime. Yeah, they all deserve a Nobel Peace Prize once this is all out. It's a Herculean effort that I can't pretend to know. But I never get to spend time at home. It's just plain and simple. I'm always on the road. I'm never at home. So having this time with Mia here has been great, honestly, for me. I would not have liked it to have come at this horrible cost to the world, but because I have to, I will say it's been a lovely change of pace for me. And I think a lot of people who are even, still working their butts off would also, it's hard not to recognize the silver linings of togetherness at home, at least if you're lucky enough to have somebody at home with you. A lot of my single friends, I'm thinking of you. Yeah. But just the change of pace, despite everything, has been nice for me. I can't speak for everybody, but it's certainly been a nice thing for me.
Have you stayed in contact with the cast from American Buffalo?
Sam Rockwell just texted me. I can't believe that. He just now. I can't believe I get to say that. He's one of my absolute all-time heroes. So for a while we were doing weekly. We would still rehearse the play. We would read the play once a week since March. And still, talking about it and keeping each other updated. And I think as it looks like Broadway's not going to reopen for a while, I think that they've kind of petered out. But without any official information, I think the three of us are pretty keen on making it work. Whenever we reopen, we'll all stop everything. The cool thing is there's not a single person involved in that play that wasn't in it for the absolute passion project value of it. So we're all going to do it. Just it's not a matter of if, it's when, for sure.
That's great, because like I said, it's one of my favorite plays, and just the team of putting the three of you together with Neil Pepe, I thought was just absolutely brilliant. And I remember that day you were just so excited to be sitting there with Sam and Lawrence, and you were like, or Larry, you're like, I'm working with them. I'm going to be working with them in a play.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have to tell you. I mean, this is nice because this is a theater family interview, but people who don't really know the play or don't really understand its prestige or its history, I have to kind of walk them through why this is such a big deal to me. But I don't have to do that with you. So you get it. I think people watching who are theater fans also understand just utter glee, for lack of a better word. I have to say it. That's the adjective. That's the noun,
Well,
I should say.
well, we cannot wait to see you living in the world of Mamet. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
me too.
really special. Well, it's been
Yeah.
a very busy year for you. I'd like to start off by telling you that the new Quibi series, Royalties, is not only hilarious, it's clever, it's smart, and it's wonderfully entertaining. And it's so what we need right now.
Thank you. I should hope so.
Yeah.
I without getting into too much of a high horse, there's I have very strong feelings about the functionality of art and humor in times of world and social crisis. It's not to put off the gravity of those things, but I think of it like this. This is a much longer video essay that I
Yeah.
have, but I was at a protest a few weeks ago, and there was somebody with a snare drum, right? And much like snare drums in any, I don't know, in the colonial war, or hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years of warfare, people have had drums to keep morale up, for means of communication. And there was such a joy to it, where people heard this, and there was dancing, and there was singing,
Yeah.
and there was a celebration of togetherness, which I think was probably amplified by the separation that a lot of us have had. And there was such an uplifting feeling to it that there's a literal and figurative comparison to the beat of a drum helping us march forward, right? And I was thinking that, I was very delicate with putting the show out during this time.
Yeah.
We held it off. I halted episodes and press because it felt wildly tone deaf. But as I've thought about it, and watching this drummer and seeing the way that people were really emboldened by its rhythm, I was thinking, in a small way, as an artist, my contribution to this moving forward of things, while not imperative, it's a goofy comedy, but I think giving people levity in a way to raise their spirits strengthens us to march forward. And if I can liken myself to just a small 16th note of the rhythm of that guy playing the snare,
Yeah.
I think that's worthwhile. So that's kind of how I've thought about this show, and it certainly has made. I've shared it with friends and family, and I was really worried about its place in the world right now, and people responded to it in a positive way, which has been very encouraging for me. And make no mistake, it is a goofy, wacky, zany, silly thing, and it's really short. It's just a quick burst of fun, humor, and energy. And I'm glad that people still, despite everything, have the capacity to let themselves laugh, and when they're done with it, get back to the real work at hand.
Well, tell our audience what the show is about.
Yes, I know. I have such long answers.
No, I love your answers. I love it.
So it's Royalties is a show that I created with some friends of mine. And for the theater fans here that may know my work with Star Kid, which is my theater production I started out of school, a lot of those guys that I worked on that stuff with is part of this show. So Royalties is a show about a very silly look, satirical look at the world of songwriting. My professional life has been divided between like the acting thing, right?
Yeah.
And the music thing. And the acting thing, just by nature of its job, has far more exposure. People are familiar with it because it's just more in your face. The music thing is much more behind the scenes. And so my relationship and experience with songwriters and producers over the years it's always called to me as a really, it is the comedy of errors, so to speak, to have people who write songs for a living. And it's not always this magical, it's not all, beautiful, the Carole King musical. While that does happen, there is this sort of utilitarian function to people that have to write songs for a living, whether it be for a commercial or for an artist, if they're lucky. It's not always as romantic and sexy as it looks, and sometimes it can often just be really stupid. And I really wanted to embrace that and take the piss out of that, because I love music shows. There's Smash for our world, Nashville and Empire. They're very melodramatic and great in their own right and full of original songs. And I just really wanted to be the kind of scrappy Reno 911 version of it that kind of just, again, really took the piss out of it and treated it with a lot of love but nonetheless satire. And so I play a guy named Pierce, and I write with Sarah, who is my writing partner, played by the wonderful Heather Donahue. If they're fans of
hilarious,
you're the worst. And they're just getting themselves into zany adventures every episode, trying to write a song for some artist or some event that they are called to write for. And those songs are all songs that I worked on and wrote with a number of my friends. And there's a new episode, a new song for every episode with a different artist, and they're all different genres. And it's just a wacky look at it's an ode to the creative process in general. It's not just songwriting. It's making fun of what it is when you have to be creative for a living.
Well, we have a clip. Will you set the clip up for us?
Sure. So this is they've been locked. They've had the opportunity to meet a famous singer at this party by the name of Jacob Jewell, played by Rufus Wainwright, and they're about to put his label's about to put out a dance track that he hates, and he meets these guys and he says, "Listen, if you have like a good old fashioned classic love song, I would love to hear it." And so they say, "Of course we've got it." Of course they don't. They now have 24 hours to write a song, and so they force themselves. They lock themselves in the room. They put away their phones, and they say, "We have to write." But they find that they get writer's block. They can't write anything, so they're sitting there pretending like they have phones. And Pierce is trying to walk Sarah through what it is that she's looking at on her phone in hopes that they find some kind of inspiring thing to write a song about.
Perfect. Enjoy the clip for royalties.
I like that one.
We have a winner. That's our inspiration. A small frog on a dime.
Frog isn't the focus. On a dime, that's a phrase.
Yes, like a cheap date, on a dime, like a love song about a cheap date.
No, you turn on a dime. My heart turned on a dime.
My heart turn on a dime. This time, your love is.
Okay, no, this is good. We're getting somewhere. It's got a turn of phrase. It's got a theme. It's got everything. Except the turn of phrase is stupid and the lyrics don't scan and it sucks and I hate it.
That is hilarious. Talk about sharing the screen with your co-star, Heather Donahue.
Heather, I think, again, the Broadway audience might know her. She was in the Grease Live that was a few years ago. Also starring Julianne Hough, which she's one of our artists. There's a lot of Broadway people in the show that we have to mention. I'll get to that in a second.
Oh, yeah.
But I was not familiar with You're the Worst. My wife was a big fan. And before we sold the show to Quibi, I made I guess, what would you call it? A pilot presentation. We kind of made a short to kind of shop it around. And we had to cast this thing with somebody that I don't know, may have some recognizability in the comedy world. And Mia suggested Heather. And I watched an interview she did on Conan. And I just cast her straight away from that. And so she's, because I knew she had some musical ability, she was very funny. And she joined us and was really great. She's been really lovely. She sings also in Pitch Perfect, and of course in Grease Live. So I was like, I wanted somebody that had at least some musical background, and so she really delivered. She's a true comedienne of sorts. She's a very funny chick that brought a lot to this, and she's been great. But there's been a lot of we're the sort of main team, and there's our engineer Tony Revolori, who people might know from Grand Budapest Hotel or the Spider-Man movies. So it's the three of us are this sort of triumvirate of the creative team. And each episode we meet a bunch of different fake artists that are may or may not be loosely based on real people. You can decide for yourself. But I happen to populate that world with a lot of Broadway family. Julianne Hough, who again did Grease Live with Heather, plays a character. Jordan Fisher, who was recently seen on Dear Evan Hansen, in Dear Evan Hansen. This is crazy. Sabrina Carpenter was also opening in Mean Girls. Sabrina, Jordan, and myself were all going to be in Broadway at the same time, and I was so excited because I was like, "Oh, royalty is gonna come out while we're all doing this thing. We can all, get a drink and celebrate together. How fun!" And so I'm bummed that didn't get to happen. But Sabrina, who was making her Broadway debut, Jordan, who was returning to Broadway. I'm probably forgetting other people. Rufus Wainwright is not necessarily a Broadway person, although he has written operas, and everybody who's
he's played Carnegie Hall. He's done
Carnegie Hall. He's done Judy, so he's kind of like Broadway adjacent. And everybody who knows his work always goes, "Why isn't he writing for Broadway?" And I second that motion.
John Stamos.
John Stamos, of course. Oh, Jesus. He's going to see this and he's going to get so mad at me.
One of my favorites. Love him.
Yeah, who doesn't love John? John plays kind of like an evil version of Desmond Child.
Yeah.
And he's in it as well. And I'm sure I'm forgetting other people. And I forgive me, it's early.
I still say that Mark Hamill is Broadway because I saw him in The Elephant Man. Just so you know, I know he's Luke Skywalker.
That's right, but he is Broadway. He did do Broadway, of course.
Yeah, he's done a lot of stuff. I think he did Amadeus too.
He did Amadeus. Of course, he did Amadeus. Yes.
Yeah, so he's the Broadway people. I only know that I bring everyone's Broadway for me.
And at some point, exactly. Yeah. I totally he did do Amadeus. Yeah. I totally remember that. And Mark, you know, people always they're surprised when they hear the song that we did because like I didn't know he could sing. I'm like, are you really surprised? He's had a prolific voiceover career for the past 40 years. Like the man is a vocalist. He makes sounds with his throat for a living that are incredible. So. We have to talk
about his song. Now, listen, first of all, I mean, this was the funniest thing I think I have seen on TV this year, hands down. I mean, explain what you had Mark Hamill do on this show and what he sang about.
Yeah. So, all the songs, which are now the lyric videos as each episode comes out, are available on YouTube.
Brilliant.
Without context, they're not. It's funny because they are directly related to things that happened in the episode. So I'd be curious to see how many people are coming out that is coming to watch that video without knowing what it's coming from. But basically, Sarah is in a relationship with this young man who goes off on this diatribe about the size of his penis being relative to that of King Kong. I won't spoil the fun. I won't spoil the fun of that monologue for people who can watch it. But she's so bemused by this monologue that she writes a song with Pierce about it, and just to have a laugh. And they agree that they can't release it because it would be too embarrassing for this guy that she likes. Of course, Pierce breaks this news when he gets a chance to meet Philip Combs, legendary rock country legend who I don't know is like a mix of if Johnny Cash, Tom Petty, and Bruce Springsteen all became one person. And he brings this song up to him, and Philip Combs really wants to hear it. And so before you know it, he wants it on the album, and Sarah has to decide whether or not she wants to embarrass her boyfriend or have a song with one of the world's greatest artists. So of course she goes with the latter, and the song is about it's a self-empowerment anthem, okay, about being okay with your size because even King Kong himself couldn't be bothered to care about it. There you go. That's what Mighty as Kong is about, and that's what Mark Hamill sings. One of my greatest recent career privileges was vocal producing Mark Hamill, and me saying, "Okay, Mark, for this next one, can we just have with the word penis? Can we really lean into the consonant of the P? Right now it's too soft. I need a hard penis. Can I get that from you, Mark Hamill? Saying those words, penis, like having him do it over and over again, and me just listening to myself going, this is hilarious because I am not making a joke, right? The song's a joke, but I'm being serious with Mark Hamill, asking him to give me a harder penis.
Well, I'll tell you, it is absolutely hilarious. Every episode is. Anybody who wants to smile and just have a really great time needs to watch this show. Because like I said, I can only imagine that's got to be a chapter for your book. First of all, getting Mark Hamill to do that and then teaching him in the vocal booth saying,
I'm already waiting for the isolated GIF video clip of me saying, give me a harder penis without that context. I'm well aware of how this works. That will come back in some way to haunt me. But it was so much fun, and he was such a good sport, and he gets the comedy of it all. And so it was, me saying that to him is him also being in on the joke, and him us making each other laugh was so great, and it was such a wonderful experience. I'll really treasure that one.
Then your director, I mean,
Amy Heckerling.
Oh my gosh, talk about pedigree.
Yes.
I mean, from Clueless and Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I mean, how did she get involved in this?
Well, I've spent a lifetime chasing my heroes, Mark Hamill, Rufus Wainwright, Sam Rockwell, and certainly Amy Heckerling. Amy and I met in New York many years ago at some event that I can't even remember. our mutual friend Darren put us in touch, and she came to see me in that little show over your left or right shoulder, depending on what the camera orientation is. She came to see Hedwig, and we had dinner afterwards, and we just got on like a house on fire. We really just hit it off, and of course, I'm a massive fan of hers, and she, you know, I'm sure she's used to guys in my situation being like prime demographic for her fan base, as far as people who grew up in the 90s and really were shaped by her work. So when we were figuring out who we could have to direct this, I just called her and she just said yes, which is insane. And, you know, this was a really, really hard thing to make because I had to do it for a little bit concurrently with Hollywood. So last year was one of the busiest, craziest years of my life for that reason. And Amy, you know, touched down in LA, like, I want to say 10 days before we started shooting. We had zero prep time, and we did it all in a fever dream of like, you know, just a handful of weeks. So she really was, you know, was a trooper to be able to go on this journey with us, for better or for worse. You know, there's a million things that we wish we could have done better, but you know, such is the nature of art under pressure. And there's a lot of things that we're certainly proud of, and I'm so greatly indebted to her talent and her grace as a person and humor. I just can't believe that. I joke that, you know, she's screwed. I'm on her resume for life now, whether she likes it or not. You know, it'll be like Clueless and that thing she may have done with Darren Criss at some point.
Well, I can only imagine what it must have been like being on the set with her. So you were doing double duty at the same time of royalties and filming Hollywood. Yes,
that was its own mini nightmare for me. We had finished principal photography, but there was some bleed over for like 2 or 3 days because I have facial hair in royalties where I'd have to put on like a fake, I'd have to shave it for Hollywood and then come. There was one day on set where I shot a scene in Hollywood, then I went to set in the Valley to shoot Jordan Fisher's number. Then I got on a plane that night to perform with Steve Aoki in Las Vegas. And it was one of these 3-for days that I was like, this is what I live for, baby. But that happened, and that was a crazy time. So even when we finished shooting royalties, I was in post-production, which was a very lengthy post-production process during Hollywood. And that was really, really, really hard on me because I don't know how Ryan Murphy does it. I just couldn't be 4 places at once. And so at one point there was a Sprinter van with a editing bay unit in it that would park next to my trailer on Hollywood, where I'd shoot scenes in Hollywood, and then my 20-minute breaks go into that Sprinter van and edit episodes and music videos, and then go back and shoot Hollywood. And it was just absolute calamity. But here we are, and I am so glad that happened then, because there's so many artists that we're shooting stuff now that can't move forward, whereas it was Hollywood and royalties were in the can. And so I've spent this quarantine promoting them from my home on these video conference calls. So I'm very fortunate, but it was a wacky, I pride myself on multitasking and doing a lot. And last year was the most I've ever been tested between doing those two things. And it was also during Elsie Fest. I was doing Elsie, Elsie, Hollywood, and royalties were all at the same time. And there's some other events that I'm not mentioning, but there was like 5 or 6 things that were all within the same like 4 months. That was just crazy. So again, having time at home in a sort of time of slowing down for me, uniquely me, was a welcome change, because it was really, really hard for me there for real touch and go there for a second.
Yeah. The creative brain is bigger than we give it credit for. Like you said, you can, it's a lot when you're doing it, but boy, what you put out this year was amazing. But, I, like millions of others, fell madly in love and became obsessed with Hollywood.
Yay!
What a beautiful, beautiful series, and so needed when we had it to another.
Yeah.
Did this come out of a dinner that you had with Ryan Murphy, like the beginning of Hollywood? What was that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'll say this. Hollywood was absolutely, it's Ryan's thing. He was very, very generous to let me be exec producer on it, simply because I think it was an act of goodwill towards that initial conversation we had. So I say that because I don't want to be one of those actors who's like,
oh yeah,
I pitched it and it's my idea. It's like, absolutely not. He and I had a wonderful little celebratory dinner. Getting a private audience with Ryan is tough. He's all over the place. So it was nice to just have some drinks, let our hair down, and shoot the shit, which I relish with Ryan, because I Ryan is as much of a professional part of my life as he is as a personal friend. So it's nice to have that time. And it wasn't meant to be a time to talk about next projects, but of course you have a couple drinks and we're both creative people, so that's what you do. And we were just talking about what we would do next with each other, and I said, look, I have my show in Quibi. It's killing me right now. I'm doing all that stuff. I don't think that'd be something that you'd be interested in, but give me just adjectives. Give me things that you're looking to do, and I'll see what I got in my back pocket right now. Like, go.
Yeah.
And he said, I want to do something period, young, and hopeful. I was optimistic. And I immediately kind of brought up the 1940s Hollywood thing, because there's a lot of stuff from that time, which for another interview, I have a whole long thing about why that time fascinates me. But there's a lot of, for entertainment fans, particularly for historians, there's a lot of, it's almost its own genre in the way that we look at sci-fi or fantasy movies. It has its own canon of characters and events that happened, some more apocryphal than others, but there is a lore of storytelling that comes from that time where you go, oh, did you hear the one about so-and-so? And there are a lot of people that have famous Hollywood stories. Again, whether they're true or not is up for debate, but they're certainly very fun to talk about. And people like Scotty Bowers, if you're familiar with him.
Oh, I read the book.
Yeah, I read the book as well, and I had just read the book, and that was a fascinating story to me. And I think the thing that attracted both of us was this dichotomy between the veneer of Hollywood, the 1940s Hollywood, which we love so dearly, and the underbelly of it that was so there, but us 80 years later don't really get to see it very much because it was directly opposed to the image that we were being given in mainstream culture. So that sort of like, that juxtaposition of glitz and glamour against prejudice and suppression was something that's always fascinated. It's something that's always been fascinating to both me and Ryan. I think both of us love these sort of dueling sort of polarities. I think Ryan really loves showing the things that are beautiful about things that are, I guess more conventionally ugly, and vice versa, things that are not so attractive about things that are beautiful. I think we did that very well in the Versace series. He's done that with American Horror Story, and that's kind of a nip tuck. It's a prevailing theme in a lot of his work, and so that was something that I really wanted to explore. And the touchstone was things like Scotty and a lot of other stories about movie stars and that we both loved. And he kind of ran with it. And the next day he texted me. He's like, I sold it to Netflix. I sold our show to Netflix.
Oh.
I was like, what? We were just riffing, man. And he's like, well, I'm going to figure out what it is. And it wasn't until a couple months later where he's like, do you mind if I do my own thing on it?
Yeah.
As in like, what was like, was I going to write it? Like, of course I'd love to, but that's your thing. And then he kind of came up with this whole concept of the writer, director, and the actor, and then kind of including all these people. And so, between him and Janet Mock and Ian Brennan, they really built out the whole world. But again, short story long, as I often do, it just started with this sort of riffing with him. And again, it was very gracious of him to include me in as an exec producer because of that dinner. And he was very nice to include me on initial creative decisions. But for the most part, I was happy to take sort of a backseat as an actor and just kind of go along with the Ryan Murphy car, because I was working on royalties.
Well, I'll tell you, you were so brilliant as Raymond Ainsley. What an incredible character. Did you base him on anything? Like, what did you learn about yourself after playing him?
He wasn't really based on anybody specifically. I mean, there are the young, great auteur directors that, I think anybody in their 20s and 30s that gets given a big opportunity in life has a certain degree of can-do pluckiness and ambition that can kind of get them in trouble sometimes when they realize that they're in over their head. So that's certainly happened to me in my own life, in my own projects. But one looks at a young, I don't know, like Steven Spielberg, even though that's decades later. Guys like that. What did I learn about myself? Gosh, I don't know. I think it's more about what other people may have learned about me. In my mind, like, I know who I am, or at least I think I do, and I forget that we all forget that we live in our own echo chambers, so that when people don't know something about you, you're like, how did you not know that? People always ask me the question, do you consider yourself more of an actor or a musician? And I always say they're the same. They're the same to me. Acting is music, music is acting. It's all part of storytelling and pacing and cadence and rhythm and timing and dynamics, and it's all in service of trying to translate a story into an emotion for you to experience. So it's that factory has many components. So people, because of this role, were like, "Oh, would you ever be interested in directing?" And I go, I am a director. Like, I direct as an actor. I'm directing. I'm careful with that, because obviously I'm not directing the piece. The director is, but sort of mechanically in my mind, I'm looking at all things I do as a director, as a producer, as the person in the pit. I kind of, because I've had experience doing all those things, everything that I do artistically has a holistic perspective from all those other angles, So I love directing, and though I haven't done it as much recently, playing that part was nice, because other people were like, "Oh, would you want to do that?" I'm like, yeah, that was kind of always the gig. People like Bob Fosse, people like Anthony Newley, people that kind of did all of it. Versatility has always been the name of the game for me. So if anything, I'm really pleased that, even though it's funny, it takes you playing a director for people to see you as a director. It's that old thing about, they don't see you as anything until you do it. The plus side of that is, if it opens up opportunities to direct more, great. I should play that. My next role should be the part of a guy that is handed millions of dollars in a suitcase with unmarked bills. Maybe that'll happen. So if anything, I between doing royalties and Hollywood at the same time, which are both behind the scenes shows, it really made me realize how much I really do love the creative process behind those things, and putting those pieces together, not just as an actor.
Yeah, I just love the escapism and the optimism of this piece, because I knew all these stories. I'm obsessed. Of course, you did. Wong. I was obsessed with her. All the Dietrich movies. I mean, I watched all the Anna May Wong movies. So when I knew that she was going to be a part of this, but then I listened to Ryan's his version of this, and I was like, oh wow, and then I'm like, oh no, that didn't happen. I wish it really did happen.
Right.
You would get so excited watching all this stuff, saying, oh my gosh, she could go in the front door. Oh no, she didn't. But you get caught up in this whole thing, say, wow, wouldn't the world be better if it actually happened this way? And boy, don't we need something like Hollywood now? Like the movies did back then, like you said. I mean, the movies were escapism back then for the black time they were living with then, the black hole we were living in, and we're living in that same thing right now.
Yeah, I think what's so nice about that show is we gave Hollywood itself the Hollywood ending it never got. And one of the strange coincidences, straight up, I'll say, is that a lot of the films in the 1940s, especially during wartime, were, like you said, pieces of escapism to lift us out of a dark time when we were, especially for a lot of Americans, we're fighting this invisible enemy outside, right? If the boys were overseas in either the European theater or the Pacific theater, we didn't really see it. Things aren't on TV. It isn't Vietnam yet. Like, it's this invisible enemy. The bad guys are out there somewhere, and we went to the movies to take us to a place that was highly curated to look like a thing that we wish life was like. Completely bizarrely, here we are 80 years later fighting this invisible enemy outside, this disease, whether it's an actual virus or a social disease that that you can't put in your hand. It's this thing that's floating around that's infecting and hurting millions of people. And yet we have this show about that time that is doing the same thing, showing a version of it that we wish it could be. The irony wasn't lost on me when I was watching the show. I was like, this is insane that it's this sort of same parallel. So hopefully it was in service of a positive, hopefully that mirroring was a positive thing.
Oh, beautiful. Is there a second season? I know Ryan sort of puts things out there like little mini movie posters and that tap dance number the three of you are doing. I mean, is there discussion of, because I can't wait.
Well, I don't know. That's above my pay grade, but I do know that everybody would love to do it. I think, the cast and crew all had a great time, and the response has been overwhelmingly positive. So I should hope so. I hope we can put that out into the universe.
Oh, it's out there now. Everybody at Broadway World they're going to start tweeting saying, bring him back. Bring back
let's do
Hollywood.
It.
Let's do it.
I love that.
So many people were going to make their Broadway debuts this spring as this pandemic hit. As you said, friends of yours are returning to Broadway. Broadway debuts are magical. They only happen once. Yours, of course, was in How to Succeed when you took on the role of Finch during a break in Glee. That was a quick, what were you were in the show for what, 3 weeks?
3 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, I have such survivor guilt for that because, it's nothing. It's nothing.
Well, I was there for your opening night, and that was listen, I love that show. I love watching people make their debuts. How magical was that night and that show for you, Darren?
Oh, man. Well, I think like all big events in one's life, all you can do is just do the thing you're there to do. It comes down to the mechanics because you don't get to watch it. So it's your wedding day or your graduate, things that you may have like envisioned as a young person. You just do it. You graduate, you grab the thing, you shake the hand, and that's it. You get married, you say the things, you make all these beautiful things happen. I mean, my wedding, that was a different thing, but still, there's mechanics that you have to get through to do it. And so with the Broadway debut, while there's this emotional and spiritual weight to the moment, it's nice to know that you're just doing what you always did. You're just doing the show, saying the lines, making the audience, laugh, smile, take them to a place. And the thing that hit me after that night was, after doing theater my whole life, not on the level of Broadway, but, even in high school or semi-professionally or what have you, it was just nice to know that if that theater wasn't within that, 10, 15 block radius in New York City, it's still just a theater, and it's still a stage, and it's an audience. And the only thing that makes this different is that it's in this place in Manhattan, but you're still just doing what you've always done. And I thought there was such a beautiful poeticism to that, that it is such a huge deal, and yet it's just the play is the thing.
Yeah. No, but it's like, you work so hard on Glee, and most people would take a little hiatus and say, I'm going to Hawaii. I'm going somewhere just to relax. And you're like, no, I'm going to Broadway. I'm going to take on the role of Finch for 3 weeks. And you were so masterful and so brilliant.
Thank you. Well, kudos to the producers who at the time they asked, would you go in for it? I was like, yeah, if I could do it for like 3 weeks, it's the only time that I have. But who would be dumb enough to allow somebody to do that? And they said, we'll do it. So I said, okay. Sure, if you're willing. So, that was a special moment. I'm glad you were there for it.
Oh, I remember that night. That was like the hottest ticket in town, where they were all like, "You're going to be covering that night anyway, Richie. We'll get you in." I was like, these are temples to me. Theaters are like, but to watch that curtain, watch you come down on that, on that scaffolding was just really, really fabulous.
It was special.
Speaking of Glee, because of Glee, you introduced many people to the theater for those 3 weeks, or just trying to get a ticket to see you. I mean, what did Glee mean to you then, and what does Glee mean to you now?
Well, gosh, that's a big one. I forget. I was talking about the echo chamber earlier, right? Like, I have my own proclivities and things that I love in the theater world that are a given to me. But I forget that people who may be interested in what I'm doing might not be interested in those things. Not for for better or for worse. I just, there's a huge disparity in all the things that I love and do versus the people who are interested, right? So when you have an opportunity to kind of parlay those interests, did I use that verb right? When you can kind of be a conduit to those interests for those people, it's nice. And you just hit the nail on the head. You were saying, people who are watching Glee trying to get tickets and go see Broadway shows for the first time. That's an honor. It's a goddamn honor. I mean, when you said, I'm always surprised when I'm doing shows and someone's like, "This is my first Broadway show," and I go, "Really? Me?" But then I realized, look, it's not an easy thing to do if you're from out of the city. It's not exactly cheap. There's things that make it very hard to do. But even if just in the idea that we've made people more interested in theater, which is indicative of being interested in the arts, which I think is indicative of being interested in humanity itself, if I may be so bold. Those are all really. That's just no other way to say it. It's an honor to be a small piece of that, because in my mind, I'm like, that's a given, right? Doesn't everybody love this stuff? And I go, no, not everybody does, and not everybody has access to it or has never considered it. So if it takes a show like Glee to make them go, oh, that is cool, that's great, and that's a legacy that I will always be proud to be a part of. Glee really did that for a lot of people of all ages, and continues to do. I mean, I have people that still come up to me that, especially during quarantine, we're watching a lot of shows that maybe we didn't catch before, and I had somebody that said, "Oh, I just started Glee." And I'm like, "Wow, that's great," So I've always been proud to be a part of it, and I was lucky because it was a hit before I was on it. So I had a very objective relationship. I was always just like, I can't believe I'm on that hit show Glee. So my appreciation for it was always very from a bird's eye view, not believing that I got to do it.
Yeah. Well, of course, you returned to Broadway as Hedwig and Hedwig and the Angry Inch. I mean, that was a dream role for you, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And if people always say, what's your dream role? I go, I did it already. I've done it twice. Hedwig was a dream come true. Again, it's a theme that I am so proud that is consistent in my conversation, which is I have just spent my lifetime chasing my heroes. Hedwig, John Cameron Mitchell, Stephen Trask was a show and a movie that I absolutely idolized. It just ticked all the boxes for me as a teenager, and getting to be any small part of it. I always liken to that fantasy. I guess if you're a musician, is the drummer or the guitar player breaks his hand or something, and they say, who can do this? And I go, I know all of it. I can play the entire set. That's I guess a little boys maybe with baseball, hey, you kid, like, come up, you need to pitch this next. That's kind of how I felt about Hedwig, where it was a show whose songs I knew I could play all of them. As a character actor, or at least always wanting to be a character actor, I enjoyed the levels of this person. Of course, I loved the sexuality and the questions that it brought up. I love the social value of it. It just every single level it was ticked for me, and it's just a kick-ass show. So getting to do that was a dream come true, and I don't think I'm done with it. I don't think I'm done with Hedwig.
Oh, I love it. Come back. Do it somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know where or when, but it seems we've stood and talked like this before.
Broadway World fans, you've heard it here.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, both audiences and critics alike were blown away by your haunting and riveting performance as Andrew Cunanan in The Assassination of Gianni Versace. I mean, you blew all of us away. We saw sides of you the acting that you brought to that role, like I said, haunting and riveting. How life-changing and challenging was that role for you?
Well, I think a lot of, this is how I feel, a lot of actors, while it is a proactive craft, it is a passive career, in the sense that, if you're lucky enough, if you're like Meryl Streep, obviously you can make your choices, but for the most part, you're auditioning and hoping that somebody else says, okay, for a long time, you kind of feel like you're in this toolbox, and you have all these skills that you can do, and you're just kind of hoping someone picks you up going, me, I can do this thing. But you only have so much control over that. And so for me, a role like Andrew, which, you know, although very, 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 very different from Hedwig. I don't want anybody to make any comparisons there. The thing that they do share, you know, there are clear arcs, like real arcs that, again, very different. But there's, as an actor, when the tools of your trade, the canvas that you're painting on needs to be huge, right?
Yeah.
Or, you know, because you want to use all the colors, right? And you want to paint it all together and make it make sense in some way. And, you know, those two characters have big canvases that require a lot of paint. And so when you want to use all those colors, getting the opportunity doesn't always come, because if you have that little role, it's a quick arc and it's just a couple jokes here and there, you know, you do your best, but there's only so much space you can occupy.
Yeah.
And someone like Andrew, which is an infinitely complex person that we simply do not have enough time to sort of break down.
Yeah.
Like that is the kind of thing that as an actor, you're like, great, you know, the go-to thing is really sink my teeth into something. It's less about that, because it's not like complication and darkness does not a good character make. You know, people often confuse, oh, I got to do something gritty for value. And not to say that gritty doesn't have value. I'm just saying that it's not the end all and be all of value. I think what makes Andrew so interesting is the variety of places that he goes to and has to take from, that makes him equally as beautiful as completely and utterly tragic, and horrifying. And so, again, back to those polarities that we were talking about earlier. Getting to have those things is the kind of thing that the actors wake up for in the morning. That's what we're here to bring to life, to compel an audience to think differently and experience things differently. So that was truly an opportunity of a lifetime.
Was it really challenging to take on? I mean, because every day was different, the journey you took as an actor with that role.
I'm the kind of guy that likes things that people think are challenging. So I'm not going to say it was easy, but it didn't feel like a challenge to me.
Yeah.
It felt like I had been waiting in the wings.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, kid, you're on. So in a sense, I had been preparing my whole life for that moment. So I can't say I was like, oh, how am I going to pull this off? Which of course is in there, sort of. But for the most part, I was like, all right, let's do this. So maybe it's just semantics. The word challenge is, you know, he was a challenging person for sure.
Yeah.
So, you know, trying to convey that was exciting. It's exciting, and it's invigorating. So that's not to say it wasn't a challenge. Again, we're just talking semantics here, but waking up every morning to do that was just so much of a thrill that it didn't feel like a challenge. It felt like we finally got to bring something to life that I'd wanted to for a long time. Yeah.
Because you won
as sad and horrible as it was.
Yeah, you won every conceivable award for that. So well deserved. It was so beautifully written, so beautifully acted. I mean, the whole team behind that was just absolutely brilliant. You were just working with the best.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think the only challenge really that I had, I should bring back, is the idea that it was a real person that had a very real, horrible connection to very real people who are still hurting from his presence. And so making sure you're treating not only those victims, but the family members with a bit of, with as much dignity as you can really scrape together, and hoping that what you're doing is not just so I can be an actor. You know, oh, I finally have my moment. It's like, that is so cheap and pithy, that the challenge was to make sure you're rising above that and making sure that you're servicing something that can hope to add constructively to the world, and not just like egotistically.
Well, what I love about your career is from the very beginning, everything you do is different. And I was wondering, is that a choice you make? Like, I haven't done this before, I want to take on this?
Oh, yeah. I said before, versatility is the name of the game. Yeah. I pride myself on the sort of dexterousness of things. And there's just so much that I haven't done yet that I'd like to do. And I'm always trying to variate, you know, like the great thing about Hollywood even is just even as something as little, well, not that little, but, you know, getting to be an exec producer on something and having more of a creative role in things is sort of the next step for me. And I was mentioning people like Anthony Newley and Fosse. I do want to be, kind of stepping into those roles a little bit more into the future. And it was never a matter of if, it was just a matter of when. And everything has kind of been a stepping stone to the next thing. To me, nothing is a straight line. It's all sort of like, where's it floating to next? So yes, I'm glad you've picked up on that, because that is absolutely the goal.
Would you ever consider playing Anthony Newley? He's one of my all-time favorite people. I'm sitting here with you right
Oh, man.
now. Has it ever, seriously, being an incredible songwriter, director, actor, I adore him. Would you ever think of taking that on?
It depends what the project would be. I don't know. Why do you know something that I don't?
I'm thinking the life of Anthony Newley. We'll just throw it out there with starring Darren Criss. I think he's a fascinating man. I think
You know what?
I was talented artist.
The night of the Golden Globes, I was with Joan Collins, and I was talking, and she was like, do you know my husband? Do you know my ex-husband, Anthony Newley? I'm like, yeah, I do. And I just thought it was so funny talking to her about him. But I don't know. I just thought you'd appreciate that story. There's nothing of that story beyond that moment.
Well, like I said, if I turn the cameras around, there's Joan Collins all over my house too, just so you know.
Oh, really?
Huge Dynasty fan. I saw her in Private Lives and everything else. I love Joan Collins. But
yeah,
I'm seriously,
she's a cool chick.
You could play the life of Anthony Newley.
Well, here's my answer. I would rather play him insofar as following a lot of his similar career footsteps in my own life, and maybe play new characters that weren't real people. But I see what you mean, and I appreciate you saying that. But I would like to follow in his footsteps more in the real world than in a story about him. I think I can't beat his performance of Anthony Newley. Yeah. I'll leave it to him to have the feather in his cap for being the best version of Anthony Newley. But for those people that don't know, watching this, Anthony Newley was not only a phenomenal performer and director, and he was for me, the biggest winning thing for me is that he was a marvelous and decorated songwriter.
Sure.
And wrote some of the greatest songs that people don't even realize. Goldfinger, he won the Oscar for. Pure Imagination.
Sure.
He wrote.
Stop
Feeling
the World,
Good.
Roar of the
Stop the World.
Paint.
I want to get off.
Oh yeah, all the Dr. Dolittle songs, the real Dr. Dolittle with Rex Harrison, and
And so that always kind of blew my mind. It's the same way when I tell people that Nat King Cole is the guy playing the piano solo on that song, or that Sammy Davis on drums. It's like all those people that did all these other things. Those are my heroes. So if I can do anything close to them, and that's what I'm shooting for.
Well, my final question is, what have you learned about yourself during this stay-at-home time?
Oh, boy. Well, I'm the kind of guy that can turn a weekend into like a year. If you give me enough time, I'm going to do way too much. If anything, it's almost too much time because there's so much that I want to do. That's a tough last question because I have too much to say. Free time to me just means time to do all the stuff that I really want to do, and not even creatively. Like my idea of a vacation is getting to sit, and just study because I'm a big linguophile, like studying my languages. I've been studying Japanese to a considerably serious degree this entire time. So just having the time to study a new alphabet and a new language system is a dream for me. That is my reprieve from having to worry about story structure and chord structure and melody and line delivery. So what have I learned about myself? I don't really know. It's that I love doing way too many things. Yeah. I just love it all. I love too many people and I love too many hobbies. And I'm just overly fascinated by the world, and I just want to absorb as much of it as humanly possible while I have time. Dare I say, I need to stop the world and get off at some point, just so I can sit back and take it all in at some point.
Well, that is absolutely terrific. Listen, for anybody, the Quibi series is called Royalties. I love that you drop a video each day after an episode runs. The soundtrack from the first season is going to drop after the finale, isn't it? On Public Records?
Yes. The whole every song of every genre, all very silly, stupid songs that will make a lot more sense if you check out the show, which is on Quibi, which you can get a 14-day free trial and check out. Just 10 episodes. I don't know. What else did I miss? Richie, you're better at this than me.
Listen, and people can just go back and watch Hollywood again. I'm going to start watching it again this weekend just to have a really feel good time again. It's like,
why not?
we need all this. We need all these feel good things as we're going through this. Whenever we have no idea when this is going to end or what the new now is going to be. But
Right.
because of your creativity and what you put out there, you make the world a better place for people who are sitting there who can escape to watching royalties or Hollywood or something else. We need entertainment to get us through all this, and it's people like you that are putting it out there.
Hopefully, the escape feeling doesn't get you out of it. Hopefully, it emboldens you and inspires you to be involved and hopefully add again constructively to the things in the world that are out there. That's my little piece. I was just saying, I was joking about stop the world and get up. I feel like the world did stop. We are up. This is it. This is what it gets to look like. I was just joking about it earlier, but I was like, no, this is it. Anthony Newley got his wish. It happened. Like, here we are.
I tell you, there's more Anthony Newley in your life, Darren, just so you know that.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot to me.
Listen, send my love to me. Like I said, I think I kept you longer than I should have, but
no, I love it.
I've been so looking forward to catching up with you. The fans at Broadway World absolutely adore you.
Well, I adore them all back, and I adore you, and I appreciate the time. You and I could gab for hours, and I look forward to doing that when I'm back in New York, hopefully doing the play, and whenever it may be.
All right. Stay safe, my friend. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you soon. Take care,
All right.
Darren.
Take care, guys. Bye.